Uh, Today is January 10th, Monday. As per usual, if you're not speaking, please be on mute. Same with if you're calling through your phone. Video is encouraged. You don't have to be on video. I won't be offended if you're not. And for the purposes of the transcript, try to state your name before speaking. It just helps us in determining when we're looking at the transcript who said what and when. So we will start with roll call, and I will go based on who I can kind of see in order of how I can see them. We have myself, Alana Cabell Tucky. I see Amy.
Happy New Year, everyone.
Hi. Jonathan.
Good afternoon and welcome to the new year.
I see Eddie.
Sorry, folks, I forgot how to work WebEx over the holidays. Happy New Year's. It just seems like only 2 weeks ago since I talked to you all. How's everybody?
Jill.
Hi, everyone. Happy New Year.
Rawa.
Hello, everyone. Happy New Year.
Joe.
Hi, good day, everyone.
And Mary Beth.
Hi, all. Happy New Year.
And I know we're working that Chris and Neil are having some problems getting on. We're working to get them on as soon as possible. And Sarin is working to try to get them on, having some issues. I know it dealt with the glitch that we had where the WebEx wouldn't let me and send me an invitation, but it sent it to everybody else. So we're still sort of working that out. And I guess this created a second with another glitch. So hopefully we can solve that pretty soon. I just glad to see everybody here today. Hope everybody had a great vacation. Got some time off. I know that not everybody fits to take time off during the holidays, but I hope everybody got at least a good 24 hours to think of something other than what you always have to think about. This 24 hours to yourself. I feel like that's just about all any of us can ask for at any given point. So the agenda for today, we're going to look to approve the minutes from our previous meetings that just so we can get them up and available on the climate.ny.gov website. Have a conversation about the public comment and hearing process, just to review that for everyone, discuss the public education sessions that we're looking to have a conversation about how things look going forward, meetings and engagement, and also discuss re-engaging with the Climate Action Council on the scoping plan. Is there anything else that anybody would like to kind of tack on to the agenda, or does this look good to everyone? All right, not hearing anything, I will move on to the approval of the minutes. We do have a quorum present. I don't usually like voting on things if everybody isn't here, but since it's the minutes, we definitely want to make sure they're public. I would like to move to approve basically all of our minutes from May until the 13th of December. Is there any conversation on that first? Anyone wants to talk about it? Okay, then can I, since we're making this formal, I guess, I don't know if we need to second it. I don't know how that's been done in the past. Do we have to second the approval of the minutes?
I think we should read them all.
Let's go through all the minutes. Make sure everything is accurate. Can I get a second, I guess, on that motion?
I'll second them, Amy Klein.
And if everyone could just, I'll just go through since I'm here, and I'll just say if everybody approves to try to think of the best way to do this. Approval, if you just raise your hand, I guess, because I don't know how to run the voting option. So if everyone could just raise your hand to say that you approve, that would be great.
I'll have to abstain because I wasn't in attendance at a lot of those meetings.
Well, feel free to read all of the minutes from to familiarize yourself.
Alana, this is Rawa. I don't know where the raise hand feature is somehow. I approve.
Okay, thank you.
Alana, unfortunately, I have to abstain since I haven't read all the minutes, and I learned a long time ago not to sign blank checks. So unfortunately, I'll be abstaining. Quick question: I've been texting Elizabeth, and she's having trouble getting in because they keep WebEx apparently keeps asking her to download stuff. Was
Oh,
that the problem?
goodness.
Has that been
I think
straightened out?
I think that's part of the problem. Sarin, if you could send Elizabeth either another invitation or send her the attendee link and then elevate her, that would be great.
Also, it looks like Chris Cole has sent an email saying he can't sign in as a panelist.
Yes, I saw that. Sarin, if you could do the same for Chris, make sure that he can get in. If we could send him an attendee link and then have him raise him up to a panelist, that would be great.
Sarah, it looks like he actually is an attendee, so he just needs to be brought up to panelist.
Oh, yes.
And this is Lisa Covert. Maybe you could say each climate justice working group member's name and see if that may be easier. So then it's, easier for the public to see as
Sure.
opposed to raising hands.
That might be a little bit easier. We already know that Jill and Eddie are going to be abstaining. So now that we have Chris and Elizabeth on, we'll start. Sorry, apologies. We'll start again. We are looking to approve the minutes from, I believe it's May 24th through December 13th, so we can make sure that those can be posted on the website. I know that Jill and Eddie are going to be abstaining, so we'll just kind of go through. And Rawa, I know that you said that you would approve. Let's see, Jill is abstaining. Amy.
Yes, I vote yes.
Chris?
Sorry
You're
about
on
that.
mute.
I vote
Yep.
yes. I vote yes.
There you go.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Jonathan.
Yes, Jonathan votes yes.
See, it keeps jumping around. Jeez. Elizabeth.
I just want to say it took me 15 minutes to get on. So maybe others had trouble too.
Oh, yes.
yeah,
There was
so
a weird issue. I don't
yeah.
know what's going on with WebEx. It gets a little bit glitchy.
Maybe you should
Apologies.
use Zoom and make life easy for people. So yeah, so
from your
yes.
lips. I was gonna say from your lips to the ears of people who control these things.
So yes.
Thank you. Neil.
Approve, yes.
That's Joe.
Yes, I vote to approve all those
Okay.
minutes. Thank you.
Thank you. And Mary Beth.
Yes, I approve. Thank you.
Okay, that is majority, so we will approve the minutes. Those will be posted on the climate.ny.gov website. If they'll still be available in our SharePoint if anybody wants to go through them, but that will just make sure that all those minutes and we're up to date on everything with regards to the website. Okay. All right, moving on. For the folks who weren't able to jump on because of that horrible WebEx glitch, I'll go back quickly to the agenda. It's just obviously proving the minutes. We're going to just have a quick conversation about the public comment and hearing process, just so everybody's aware of what we're looking to do. Discuss the public education sessions that we're planning on having that will supplement and sort of maybe come before some of our public hearings, discuss the future meetings and our engagement process throughout, and re-engaging with the Climate Action Council. So for the folks who unfortunately had to get on late, does anybody have any questions about that or anything they'd like to add to the agenda? Hearing nothing, I will move on to the public comment and hearings process. So this is, so in ECL 75-111, this is what's required basically before we finalize the criteria for identifying disadvantaged communities. We are going to publish the draft criteria and the list of communities, and we will hold at least a minimum of 6 regional public hearings, with 3 in the upstate region and 3 in the downstate region, and also allow a 120-day comment period, and make sure that there is meaningful opportunity for everyone to participate. The goal for us will be to obviously adhere to that and potentially hold additional meetings as they're needed. How we're planning on doing this, the format, obviously virtual will sort of be the preferred format to make sure we can get as many people as possible, but there is the potential for having some meetings in person if we obviously to make sure we can assure that there all safety issues are adhered to, and we can find a location that will be able to accommodate folks for the hearing. The goal is to have this in a more traditional legislative hearing format, where we would have an ALJ that would preside over the proceedings, would give sort of an opening and a closing statement, and allow everyone to have a minimum of 3 minutes of comment time and continue that until everyone is heard. So we wouldn't necessarily have a time limit on the hearing. It would just basically go until everybody has had an opportunity to be heard. With regards to the upstate, downstate, or regional divide, what we would do is when we schedule the hearings, we would sort of focus on a specific area or getting comments from a specific area, and give priority during the registration process to the regional residents or representatives. Everybody else would still have an opportunity to speak. We would just let people from that particular area speak first, and then anyone else from outside would kind of go after that. Does anybody have any questions?
Hey, Lana, I just had one. It's Eddie.
I do. Oh.
And oh, good. I'm sorry. You go, please.
Yeah, I just had a question because of the population density in New York. What does that look like for New York City?
So if it's in person, obviously we'd have to try to find a location that could accommodate people, and we would most likely have multiple meetings. If it's virtual, again, it's only a minimum of 3. So we could, what that would look like is we might have to separate it or just have a multi-hour meeting, which is not always conducive, but have multiple meetings where we would prioritize specific areas or specific boroughs. So, potentially having a hearing for each borough to allow people to have an opportunity to speak. Does that make sense?
Yeah, thank you.
Yep. The goal would be to not, have folks sit on a, call or on a virtual hearing for 5 hours waiting for an opportunity to speak, but to break it out so that everybody gets at least a priority time. And if somebody, has spoken maybe in a previous hearing, but they just remembered that there was something else that they wanted to opine on, they could come back to another hearing. But then the person, the folks in that specific regional or that area would have priority first.
Hi,
Hey,
Alana.
Alana.
Yes.
Hi, this is Joe.
Hi, Joe.
I had a quick question about the ALJ presiding. So
Yes.
would that be someone who would, with opening closing statements, would they be like a statement of purpose of the hearing to say, this is a working group hearing to solicit feedback on the draft criteria, et cetera? Or would they be doing in any way a presentation of the draft criteria, the draft criteria that we've been developing? Or what's the
No.
thought on that?
Sure. Nope, they wouldn't be doing any presentations. This would just be a straight hearing. So they would do sort of an opening statement of purpose of, this is why we're having the hearing. And then we would go straight into folks giving their testimony. We do plan on supplementing these with education sessions that would have more of an opportunity for people to ask questions, talk a little bit more about the criteria, the indicators, how we determine this, giving some people ideas of how to use the maps. But what the hearing process will be, just sort of a straight hearing. Eddie, you had
Thank
a
you.
question?
Oh, sorry. Can I just say one more thing real quick?
Sorry, go on.
Sorry, Eddie. I really do think that's a great idea. I do like the format. And this is from the perspective of we've been doing at the Department of Labor. We just started a new series of these, but some different hearings on the issue of farm worker overtime. And they're fairly similar. They're in-house. It's not an ALJ. It's us as staff at DOL that are running it, but it's similar where people are given the 3 minutes. And just a quick information point, they're all virtual, right? They've become virtual because of the pandemic. We're not doing anything in person, but even with, it did take a little bit of time and discussion with a lot of the farm worker and worker organizations in terms of information, in terms of letting them know about the process and how people could sign up ahead of time, because it's a low-wage worker population that's often in the fields, right? And so there are some natural potential access issues that you think about, but we found that with enough lead time, we're able to have some good, significant participation by that population, despite some natural potential technological barriers. So I just wanted to share that.
Oh, thank you. The goal is to make sure that there is plenty of time from when the information from the criteria, the maps and everything are released between that and the public education sessions and the hearings to give everyone an opportunity to sort of digest the information, figure out exactly their, any issues, give an opportunity to sort of ask questions at the public education sessions before we jump right into the hearings. Eddie.
Oh, thanks. And apologies, there was a knock at the door, so I may have missed some of this. I caught the tail end of what Joe was saying. I agree with him. I think to the degree that we have any ability to kind of make a decision on this, I think virtual, just for the sake of just, public safety and just, assurance, because, if Omicron starts to decline in terms of exposure rate, that may be fine, but we don't know what the next variant looks like. So, I just to be on the safe side, it may be the most efficient and quick decision we could make. And I also agree, to the degree we can find ways that folks who are on the other side of digital divide, given specifically this population that we're trying to make sure we're being accountable to, we need to, be thoughtful about folks who might not be able to, tune in because of technological barriers and find alternative ways for them to weigh in. So yeah, I agree with that. The one question I had, again, apologies if this came up and I missed it when the knock was on the door, but I know we talked about this in previous meetings. I just don't remember where we landed. Do you expect that there be a role for the advisory committee members themselves in these hearings? I hope to God not. Or did I say that out loud? I'm sorry. But I'm just wondering, is there any expectation of any role for us in these hearings?
Oh, no, the hearings are really just, you read the statement of purpose, And then people just, we call on folks to give their testimony. So there's really no necessarily any need for anybody to be involved in that unless you have specific testimony that you'll be giving. We also, at some point I do want to discuss the extent to which you want to be, potentially involved in the education sessions, but not necessarily the hearings.
Thank you.
Jonathan, did you have a question? Your hand is up. I didn't know if your hand was still up from the minutes.
No, my hand has just been removed. Thank you for bringing it to my attention.
Absolutely. Does anybody else have any questions related to the hearings format? Okay, moving on to the, oh, did I skip it? No, to the draft public comment process. So once we release the draft criteria, the list of the census tracts and the maps and the methodology, that will trigger the beginning of the public comment process, which was 120 days. Using the wonderful powers of counting on a calendar, that would generally, depending on when we started, if we were able to get everything out by maybe that third week in January, that last week January, that would put us into May for the public comment period ending. So we'll have an official start and end date, but that just kind of triggers everything. The comments are going to be collected for 120 days. We will advertise that on our DEC website, specifically on our EJ page, but that information is going to be housed and live on the climate.ny.gov page. That's where all the information regarding the Climate Justice Working Group is now. I think it would cause too much confusion to sort of move that over to DEC's page. As long as we post a link, I believe that does satisfy our legislative requirements. Like I said, we will have public education sessions that are available. There's no necessarily limit to those. The goal will be to have as many participants as possible so people can have an opportunity to ask questions. Again, see exactly how to use the maps, how to look at the data so we can explain things to people, because I don't want the first, few questions that we get or comments that we get on this to be, what am I looking at and why did you do this? I would rather have, to get some substantive comments on it. We are also planning, in addition to having the public education sessions, to having something of a webinar that we record that sort of explains, a little bit of the data, explains how to use the maps. It explains to folks what you're looking at when you get to look at the list of census tracts and exactly how that methodology was determined so people don't get confused. So we're going to have something recorded that will also live on the climate.ny.gov website so people can refer back to that. The other sessions will be recorded, they'll also live there, but we'll have a separate session that's really just a straight webinar that people can refer to. Once we get closer to the end of the 120 days, we'll definitely be collecting all of the public comments. We are looking to have those be collected again on the climate.ny.gov website using a comment form, but there'll also be an email address. If that format doesn't fit people, we also have email address there that people can send comments to. And like I said, once we get closer to the end, we'll be able to reconvene to start to discuss the criteria, the list of the DACs, and any information that was gathered during the public comment process. So we will be making sure that we're keeping a careful and close watch of the comments. Does anybody have any questions on that? Nope.
I'll get.
Oh, was that you, Eddie?
It was. I thought someone else was saying something, so I was waiting my turn. But
Oh, no,
is
it's
there
just
anybody
me.
else? Oh, okay. Alana, I know we've talked about this again also in the past. We've members of the working group have asked how are Indigenous communities, how are the First Nations leaders being engaged in this process as we move forward? And last I recall, there were two things I remember we talked about. One was for the purposes of DAC's criteria. If memory serves, I thought I remember there was an understanding that all Indigenous areas would be considered DACs for the purposes of moving forward and making sure that the criteria is helpful and applicable to First Nation folks. But we also heard that there was going to be a separate, because of the unique nature of First Nation engagement with the state of New York, that there would be a state-to-state conversation. How do we know what the status is of that, and do we know how Indigenous folks, leadership, like how are they going to engage in this process moving forward, or is that still pending a direct conversation with the state of New York and First Nation leaders?
I have David Witt on the line right now. Dave, do you want to address that?
Sure. Can everyone hear me? Hello?
Yes. Yep.
Okay. So yes, Eddie, you're right that the census tracts that are either overlapping with reservation territories or contain at least 5% of their territories being owned by an Indian nation, such as the United Nation, are being included as a DAC, just off the top. And regarding the continued outreach, we did reach out to the nations in the past, several times, in fact. I know that NYSERDA has had some meetings with the Haudenosaunee Environmental Task Force regarding this topic, as well as others, clean energy and so on. We have brought it up with the previous annual meetings. We have another one that's coming up in May at some point. We're trying to finalize the dates on that with the EPA. And that will be another topic of conversation that we'll bring up to see if they have any further questions or if they'd like to engage with us further on that. That's pretty much the latest update I have it on this point in time. We've reached out and now we are just waiting on the nations to come back to us if they decide that they want to engage within this particular forum. So,
Thanks, Dave.
Does anybody else have any questions or comments on the draft comment process before we move forward? Okay. So, like I said, in addressing public comments, we will have the goal is to obviously keep everybody engaged, but we definitely will, the closer we get to the end of the comment period, we're going to bring folks back together to address the comments, address any issues that come up that might require us to re-examine the criteria, re-examine some of the indicators, et cetera. We'll definitely be compiling that and presenting it to the working group for review, most likely in a very similar format to what we have now, and sending out data ahead of time so everyone has an opportunity to sort of take a look at it so we can come in and have a good substantive conversation. Does anybody have any questions, comments, or any additional way that they would like to see that happen? Yeah. Okay, I will continue moving on. So
One last question, sorry.
Sure.
So sorry, and I know I remember this came up. I'm trying to catch up on everything we learned in 21 in this call for the next hour. So you're doing an amazing job reminding me of everything we said we did last year, Alana. To that end, here's another question: what are we doing in terms of language barriers and immigrant communities, folks who are not English dominant? And I remember we talked about this. I'm just trying to get up to speed for 22.
Sure. So the WebEx format does allow us to have an interpretation aspect of it. So when folks register, and hopefully I'm getting this completely right, when folks register, if there are some language barrier issues, we can use language line, or I believe WebEx does have a way that somebody can get a line where everything can be interpreted for them. I can definitely double check to make sure I have all the information on that, but I know that it will have enough time for people to register. So there'll be enough time in between the registration time and when we would need to get an interpreter in.
Excellent. It's great. Assuming WebEx works, right? Fingers crossed.
Assuming, it seems like we have, it works better when we're doing hearings than it does when we're just trying to have a regular meeting. I don't know why that is. Hopefully everything works out the way it's supposed to work out, but the goal will be to make sure that there's enough time in between the registration time and when we actually, seek out the interpreters, because of how we use the interpreters, they just usually need at least a good maybe week or two in advance to find someone. Does anybody have any questions? I can't answer a whole lot of questions on our interpretation services, but I can answer some. All right. So with regards to the public education sessions, we like to have those sort of in lieu of starting off each meeting with a half an hour presentation. It's usually better when we're dealing with public hearings to just get to the hearing and get to the testimony, and rather than have this sort of half an hour interlude where we're reading that into the official transcript. It's just preferable to have a series of education sessions that give people an opportunity to actually ask questions about the draft and address certain issues, so that when we come to the public hearings, we're really just hearing testimony. So the format of those will be to hold a minimum of 2. We can always hold more if it seems as if those are popular and are very helpful, but hold a minimum of 2 sessions in the WebEx format to kind of, assist with those technical questions and issues. And like I said before, create sort of a pre-recorded webinar so that everybody can go back to that and refer back to that. We're still sort of toying with the format a little bit about whether or not we'll, keep it in sort of short, 5-minute bursts discussing different aspects, or if it's just going to be a longer format meeting. But once we have that, we'll definitely get that up as soon as possible. Does anybody have any questions? Okay, well, this is the part where, we talk about, your potential involvement in the public information session. So there is an opportunity there to have some of these public information sessions, potentially in person. Obviously, we're dealing with, like I said, with Omicron variant, and that might not be necessarily reasonable, but this is an opportunity if anyone's interested to potentially be involved in the public education sessions as working group members to answer if somebody asks a very specific question about an area, to answer questions on that. So I will, not going to put any pressure on anybody to answer anything now, but everybody can sort of individually determine the extent to which they want to be involved in that process. Any questions, comments?
Yeah, I came back chock full of questions from the holiday, so let me stop and see if anybody else is.
Nope, I think it's just you. It's not just you who has questions, but I think you're the only person right now who has questions.
You know what it is, Alana? It's like when they told people back in school, don't be afraid to ask questions. There are no stupid questions. I'm the idiot in class that always believed that. So like I'm always asking what I was wondering is if we take up the offer to kind of sit in on some of these public sessions, I'm wondering, short of me going back to grad school and failing statistics again, like I am not the person to be answering some of the more detailed.
Right. No.
Illum, hint, illum. Like, is there any way we could pull in Dr. Dunn and make her life even more? She's been so happy about working with us all. I'm just wondering if that's and like who can we have pull in? I don't know if that's actually an appropriate role for an alum. But that's the part I'm worried about, is like when folks start asking like highly technical, statistical, kind of like really deep dive, in the weeds questions about data.
Right.
Who's going to feel that? Because like I promise you right now, my WebEx will go on the fritz at that moment.
No, I understand. I don't think that's going to be me either. Chris, did you want to address the Illumin?
Yeah, so I think the intention is, we would have staff from agencies and Illum. We haven't because we don't know what the format looks like right now. Haven't kind of laid out kind of specifically what the roles for everyone would be, but we will have folks that can answer kind of the technical questions if they come up. So don't worry about that.
Can I ask, this is Elizabeth, in addition to having translators, are the materials, the visuals, the graphics also available in other languages, and how do people access those?
Oh, we can definitely make those available if we do during the registration process, or if we get a call for translating documents, we can definitely make sure that those are available to folks, and they can either follow along and like I said, we can make sure that those are sent out to people. So if someone needs, for example, to have one of our presentations translated, we can have that translated and sent out to them.
That's great, because in addition to it being complex, not to have the graphic, images, not to have that available makes it a little bit more challenging. Thank you.
Right, absolutely. All right, does anybody else have any questions on the format for the public education sessions? Okay, moving on to the materials and the documentation, and that kind of deals with it. So we will also require, so if you have any comments or any additional documentation right now, like I said, we're looking at providing the maps, the list of disadvantage criteria, a sort of high-level memo that details the process along with the indicators, the list of indicators along with sort of the justification for using them, and additionally the list of the indicators that were not used. If you guys have any additional information that you think that we should provide to the public, that or if you're hearing anything from your constituencies about what they would like to see, definitely email myself, Chris, Amanda, Alex, let us know, and we can try to make that material available and add that to the list of documentation. I definitely want to make sure that there is as much information as possible out there, but I don't want to overwhelm and confuse folks. So if you're hearing that there's a call for very specific information, definitely let us know. Okay, so moving forward to future engagement and additional meetings. So I know that everyone, we're into the legislative session. Those of you who are in academia are deep into all of your class schedules, and everybody's time is very, very valuable and very precious, and nobody really has as much of it as they might have had during the holiday season. So I want to make sure that we are respecting, and I'm respecting everyone's time. So bringing into mind that the goal is to re-engage with the Climate Action Council on the scoping plan, and that the Climate Justice Working Group also has a role to play with regards to the air monitoring program and reviewing that going forward. Is it still best for everyone's engagement and for everyone's purposes to continue to look for having monthly meetings? Is every other month potentially better? I definitely want to hear from you on not on engagement level, basically. How often would you like to be harassed by me? Feel free to speak up.
I mean, I guess for me, it depends if we're going to be having more regular meetings that are shorter, that may be easier to fit into my schedule versus very long meetings, less often. So I guess I would say more meetings that may be more efficient.
I can say for meeting for the Climate Action Council re-engagement, the goal would be to do sort of a similar fashion as to what was done with the panel recommendations, where the Climate Justice Working Group would be given time during the Climate Action Council meeting, sort of to come in for, I believe it was about an hour to discuss certain issues, maybe even 2 hours to discuss certain issues with the Climate Action Council. But for us, it could be something as simple as, having a quick re-engagement meeting that's maybe an hour long. Obviously, I would schedule a little bit longer to make sure that, everybody has an opportunity to speak, but it would, have, I think, shorter meetings. If I could definitely make sure, put that on everybody's radar, if that's something that we're comfortable with. Eddie, I see you've unmuted.
Oh boy, yeah, and I was just trying to do it subtly so I could just like wait for others. I don't know if anyone else had any other feedback to give here. I obviously did, but I thought I'd wait for a second just to see if anyone else has something to say.
This is Amy. I was just going to ask, sort of what the agenda for the meetings going forward would be. And, I think that from my perspective, that really would dictate the need for, how often and the length.
So, like I said, definitely with regards to re-engagement with the Climate Action Council, the goal would be to, have folks have an opportunity to actually discuss, your reactions to the scoping plan before necessarily going, with the Climate Action Council. So if you wanted to have an opportunity to maybe sit down together and, to the extent you can through WebEx and talk about that and talk some of that out, scheduling a meeting for that. With regards to the air monitoring, having a meeting to discuss, our role with the air monitoring plan, exactly how, our, the list of communities that would be receiving air monitoring, how that would look. That's another meeting that could potentially be longer or shorter, most likely about 2 hours. So those would be sort of the topics that would arise. Climate Action Council obviously would be something that would require more than one meeting, because obviously there's no way you're going to be able to go through the entire scoping plan in just one Climate Action Council meeting. And I would assume that the working group would want to maybe have multiple conversations. We could set up shorter meetings, even a half an hour here and there, or an hour here and there. And it really does kind of, for that, depend on your level of engagement and how you would like to be engaged in that process. You don't have to have any answers to that now. You can obviously think it over and we can speak again.
Hey, Alana, while folks are gathering their thoughts, just if I can, I just wanted to share some perspective from last year and I'm pretty certain I'm not alone in this. I've heard this from several of the other working group members. One of the ways that the work of the working group was more challenging last year, I think, than maybe we could have anticipated, was when if again, I may be blurring some of these dates, but it seems to me that I don't think we didn't realize until like May that part of our responsibilities was going to be to review all of the working group sets of recommendations and provide feedback to the Climate Action Council on all that. It came late in the year, and it was also truncated because that meant we had to kind of quickly get up to speed on all of the hundreds of pages of working group recommendations and try to pull together a consensus on those positions and try to get on the Climate Action Council. It was a bit much, especially since we're all doing this as volunteers, and we had to basically rely on the kindness of well, not strangers, because of our colleagues. We had to rely on the kindness of strange colleagues to kind of help us pull together all the analysis, and then for us to be able to do it. So I'd much rather avoid that same scenario this go round. To do that, we need to know what the Climate Action Council's timetable is, because something tells me that it's going to be a similar crunch, that Climate Action Council has a legislative clock that they're operating under, which is going to make our jobs the same kind of, okay, hurry up, read and react, right? And I don't know about anybody, and I don't know about the rest of the working group. I have not plowed through the climate action plan scoping process, all of it yet. I know there's a section where they actually responded to the climate justice working group recommendations. I haven't even read that yet. But yeah, I'm just bracing myself for what sounds to me like maybe a time sensitive period of time where we have to do the same thing all over again. Go back, review the scoping plan, then get a call together of the working group to make sure we're okay with what we're going to say to the council, and then finally doing that. Can you give us a sense of what the council's legislatively kind of defined timetable is moving forward, and like when can we just give up? When do we have to begrudgingly give up our schedules? Are we talking about like February? I mean, that's pretty much how it felt like last summer. So I'm
Right.
just trying to, avoid some of that last minute. But it feels to me like there's going to be, based on that, maybe a couple of weeks here or there that it's going to be really intense for us. So yeah. So if you could kind of give us some sense of that, that would be really, really helpful.
So as of right now, I do not believe the Climate Action Council has any meetings scheduled. So that kind of gives us an opportunity to sort of maybe get something that's a little bit more convenient for this group. I know that they're looking to start their public comment process more in April, their hearings process more in April. Obviously, their public comment process is happening now. I don't know what their timetable looks like. So I do believe that we have an opportunity there to have it be less of a crunch. Jared,
Alana,
good?
yeah, sure,
There you go.
Alana. I'm happy to jump in for a moment. So we're in this process, the 120-day comment period right now, and to me, that's an ideal opportunity for engagement between the council and the climate justice working group, at least beginning that engagement while that process is underway. Once that process is done, then the council will start considering the input that came in that process. And it would be, great to have, the engagement with the Climate Justice Working Group and the really important, perspective you all bring to bear, along that same schedule. There would still be opportunities for engagement subsequently, I think, but it would be best if we could have some of those conversations over the next 4-month period, I think. And, as far as our meetings, the meetings of the council, we're, we anticipate or are hopeful that we'll have those conversations with the Climate Justice Working Group over the next few months, and we will schedule meetings of the council accordingly.
Thanks, Jeff.
So I'll definitely take the concerns that we had from the previous interactions to the Climate Action Council members and to see if there's a better way to schedule these so that they're convenient for folks, and hopefully including you on whatever polling that they use to create meetings, or however we can make that available and accessible to everybody.
Yeah, Alana, it's Jared. If I could just say again, to the extent that this, if this group is ready to provide some input, say in 30 days, 60 days, we'll schedule a meeting with the council accordingly. We really want to hear from the working group in that regard and make it a process that is, works for you so that you're not rushed.
So with regards to our meetings and Climate Justice Working Group meetings, is a shorter format a little bit more amenable for everybody's schedule? Maybe scheduling an hour here, hour and a half there, to kind of discuss issues like the air monitoring program or If you are hearing anything from your constituencies, bringing that up, is that something that's a little bit more convenient for everyone? Rather than 2 3-hour meetings? I meant 2 3-hour meetings, not 2 3-hour meetings. All right. Hearing nothing, I will take that as a yes.
I posted that shorter is more manageable.
Yes. All right.
Okay.
Definitely trying to make sure that they're shorter.
And hey, Alana, this is Chris, and maybe the other thing that we can do kind of over the next week or so is pull together a bit of a work plan, just with timelines and milestones, so that way as the the work to get the public input on the DAC criteria is underway. That may allow more time for the working group to focus on the CAC, and then by that time the DAC criteria input process should be over, and then the group would then need to kind of focus back on finalizing that criteria. So if we maybe map this out a little bit, that'll be great.
Absolutely. We can put together sort of a timeline, little sort of agendas for items that would come up, and we can send that out. Does anyone else have any questions, comments, or input on that? Okay, moving forward. So we already kind of discussed the CAC agenda and engagement. So I am going to kind of skip over that because we ended up talking about that. So the next steps for the public comment process and the documentation, just the staff is working, and our illustrious consultants are working to sort of create a work plan to make sure that all of that information is completed and sent out. We hope to have a date by which we can release this, hopefully by the end of, what do you think, Chris? By the end of this week, we should be able to determine a date so that we'll have an opportunity, a date to start it.
I think so.
So the goal will be to have a date that we will, a date certain that we can have everything set out for when the website will be built, for having a useful version of the maps and having all the documentation that's needed. If anybody has any input, again, I can send a list of the items that we're proposing to send out to everyone. If anybody has any questions or concerns, or if they have anything that they think should be added, we can add that to the list of items that are released. But we will definitely keep everybody updated on what we're putting out, and and we might actually utilize you in making sure that the map is suitable for public use. But other than that, that's sort of where we are on that. So we'll definitely keep everybody updated. Does anybody have any questions, comments, or concerns with regards to the public comment process or the documentation and those dates?
A lot of oh god, I'm sorry.
Oh no, go ahead.
This may not be the right place for this question, but I was just wondering, unless you guys don't know yet, what is the intention for our state partners here to publicize this? And by publicize, I don't mean just putting up the usual kind of public notice, make sure we're fine with the administrative procedures and like all that stuff, but like, are you guys planning doing some sort of public engagement or public notice through the media? Like, is there any of that stuff that you all are thinking about? Just wondering.
It's fun you've asked. We've already had multiple media inquiries about where that is, so we definitely have interest. We'll definitely be making sure that we're doing a push where we're providing some information to the media, a sort of media package. Obviously, I want to make sure that the public, sort of gets it first, if that makes sense. I want people to be able to have equal access to the information, but we're definitely going to be doing a push that way. There'll be a press release, obviously. We'll make sure that links and information is available through our EJ listserv, through any other listservs that are available, just so we have all that information available. Hopefully our climate friends and climate change, Office of Climate Change will help us out with that too. But the goal is to make sure that this is published as widely as possible. It's fairly prominent on our website, and that it's also in the media, so there's some explanation there as well.
Can you be intentional about reaching out to ethnic media and Spanish language media, since that's actually the largest readership and viewership in New York? I think that it's often neglected, and it's an important space for people to access information.
Absolutely.
And to that point, Alana, I mean, I think that, yeah, no, I think it's I'm glad to hear this, and obviously, yeah, we want to make sure that the public is serviced and served first. Totally right. The reason I mean, obviously, aside from the obvious reasons why you want to engage with press, there's also, frankly, you know, others on this call are much more engaged than I or Nija are, but you know, there is the parallel Biden Justice 40 initiative where they are, you know, moving much slower than we are, and in fact are not, my opinion, are not being as expansive or as frankly intentional as we have been. Like, for example, they're still trying, they haven't even grappled, as far as I could tell, with the question of whether or not they want to be held accountable to direct investments or benefits of. There's, you know, I've heard from others that they're leaving it up to the agencies to figure out. Like, there's just so many missteps that appear to be happening on the Biden administration front when it comes to Justice 40, that I and others on this call, I think, are hopeful that the better we're able to describe what's getting done in New York, the more we might be able to influence, you know, shape, shame, whatever works, the Biden people to do a better and faster job than what they're apparently doing, especially since they have, you know, publicly and repeatedly pointed to what we did in New York with the CLCPA as the inspiration for what they're doing. I don't know about everybody else here, but I don't want to be I don't want to be held accountable for somebody else's bad implementation of an idea that we executed well here in New York. So yeah, that's kind of part of why I'm pushing this, but I'll stop there. Thank you.
Oh no, let's say, ooh, there's a lot of pressure there, Eddie. Okay.
Yes, no pressure.
No, we're definitely going to try to make sure that I mean, my goal is with all of this is to make sure that the information that goes out is, you know, accessible and digestible to the general public, so that we do get those substantive comments. And if there are, you know, things that we can add, subtract, if there are ways that we can move it along, so that this is sort of something that people can look to and say, okay, this is that New York did it right. So obviously there's, you know, we have a good amount of time, and the good news is that according to the legislation, it lasts forever. So we will always have an opportunity to, you know, go back and look at it. If we maybe missed something in the beginning, we can always come back and look at it again. But yeah, there is kind of a bit of pressure to kind of try to get it as right as possible the first time. So it's definitely something that's in our brains, and we're definitely trying to make sure that we do this right.
Hey, Lana, this is Chris again. I guess as we're thinking about, you know, outreach to make folks aware about the, you know, the educational sessions as well as the input sessions, I also wonder if we can work with members of the working group to maybe, you know, craft some announcements that can be distributed to everyone's network, you know, or maybe kind of think about like how to be strategic in targeting, you know, participation in the sessions. And so I don't know if we have time to do it today, or if that should be a follow-up, but you know, I know a number of the working group members have, you know, robust networks, and, you know, could really help to get the word out.
No, that's great. We can definitely work on some language, especially once we get some timetables for those education sessions, making sure that there is sort of a narrative that goes around, and, you know, folks can tweak that to, you know, meet their needs, but that, you know, explains what we're doing and the importance of the education sessions and, you know, the information that'll be presented. So no, I definitely want to make sure that that happens. Does anybody have any input on any other additional input? And I have heard from Haley Vaccaro from DEC. She is not a panelist, but she is listening in, and she wants to make sure that everyone knows that we absolutely are going to target diverse and ethnic media. So, and we will make sure that that does get out of all. She wants to make sure that that folks knew that that's definitely something that we will be doing. All right. I won't bring this up now, but just to kind of put a little bug in everyone's ear, that once we get closer to the end of this process, the goal will be to also discuss how future engagement of the Climate Justice Working Group looks, how often we want to meet starting in 2020, end of 2022, 2023, whether we want to meet twice a year, 4 times a year, 8 times a year, you know. So again, not something that we necessarily have to talk about now, but just something to just keep in the back of your heads when we're scheduling these, you know, shorter sessions about what's most convenient for folks and how we would like to see this moving forward. Does anybody have any additional questions, comments, concerns before we close things out for today? All right. Well, thanks everyone for jumping on. Just so you know, when we do schedule meetings, even if we if we do schedule them, we'll probably like have either an hour and a half or 2 hours scheduled just in case, you know, we need that extra time. But I think that this hour format probably works really well, and should definitely continue it. Anybody has any questions or concerns that you think of later, please feel free to email me, call me. I think everybody has my desk number. I mistakenly put that in the body in my email signature. So everybody has it. A lot of people have it. So feel free to call me with any questions or concerns, or even any suggestions if you, like I said, hear from folks who, you know, think, well, you know what, it'd be great if the Climate Justice Working Group did A, B, and C, or included A, B, and C. I'll be reaching out to everybody with a poll again for our next meeting. And we'll definitely make sure that we have a conversation with Climate Action Council so that they are scheduling meetings that are convenient for the working group and everyone else going forward. All right. Thanks everyone for taking this time, and I hope to talk to you all soon, but not too soon and not for too long. Even though I enjoy talking with all.
Take care.
All right.
Happy New Year, Dan. Bye.
Happy New Year, everyone.
Happy New Year.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.